Self-mastery begins with silence. In a world that constantly urges us to express, explain, and expose every detail of our lives, choosing to be silent is not weakness, it is discipline. Silence is not the absence of action, it is the presence of awareness. When we stop speaking about our problems to everyone around us, we begin to observe them with clarity. This observation creates a space between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. It's within this space that mastery begins. The person who is constantly explaining their pain to others may find temporary relief, but not lasting strength. Speaking of your difficulties over and over again reinforces their presence and gives them more control over your thoughts. Silence, on the other hand, forces you to sit with discomfort. It teaches you to breathe through your pain, to understand it without judgment, and to accept that the solution lies not outside but within. When you choose silence, you become more intentional. Instead of looking outward for comfort, you look inward for understanding. You start asking yourself better questions. What is this situation trying to teach me? Where am I repeating patterns? How can I grow from this? Rather than seeking validation or sympathy from others. The answers that emerge from this inner inquiry are far more powerful than any advice you could receive externally. Silence also shields you from distractions. The more people you share your problems with, the more opinions you invite. And with too many opinions, clarity becomes clouded. You begin to doubt your path. You lose connection with your inner voice. But in silence, your mind becomes still. Like muddy water that clears when undisturbed, your thoughts begin to settle. Only then can you see your situation for what it truly is and not what emotion has distorted it to be. Silence is the training ground for strength. It teaches patience, endurance, and humility. It cultivates the kind of self-control that prevents you from being emotionally reactive. When you no longer need to voice every hurt, you realize how much power you truly have over your own mind. And with that power, you stop being a victim of your circumstances. You become the master of them. Pain is a teacher, not a public performance. When life brings discomfort, disappointment, or hardship, it is easy to fall into the habit of sharing that pain with others in search of sympathy or validation. But pain was never meant to be broadcasted for applause. It is not a tool for attention. It is a silent instructor, guiding you inward, where true transformation begins. Every painful experience holds a lesson. It reveals your weaknesses, exposes your attachments, and confronts your illusions. Pain challenges the image you have of yourself and the world. It strips away comfort and forces you to see reality without filters. If you treat pain like a performance, something to display to others, you miss its message. You become focused on the reactions you receive instead of the growth you are meant to experience. The applause might feel comforting in the moment, but it distracts from the work that must be done in solitude. There is a certain dignity in walking through pain quietly, not because you're hiding it, but because you're learning from it. The most powerful lessons in life are the ones you endure privately, the ones that reshape your thinking and sharpen your awareness without the need for an audience. Speaking about pain often dilutes its power to teach. The moment you narrate it for others, you start shaping it for their ears, and the raw truth of what you are meant to face becomes blurred. Pain demands presence. It requires you to sit with it, breathe through it, and listen to what it is trying to tell you. That listening cannot happen when your energy is spent on seeking external reactions. It happens when you are alone with your thoughts, when you reflect, and when you choose not to run from discomfort. In this way, pain becomes a guide. It points you to parts of yourself that need healing, growth, or letting go. It refines your character in ways comfort never can. To treat pain as performance is to keep yourself in a loop of suffering. You revisit it for the sake of telling the story again, and in doing so, you keep it alive. But when you allow pain to teach instead of entertain, it becomes a powerful force for evolution. You begin to see that every difficulty carries wisdom, and that wisdom only arrives when the noise fades, and you're ready to learn, not to impress, but to transform. Resilience grows in stillness, in the quiet moments when there is no one to listen, no noise to distract, and no comfort to shield you. Something essential begins to take root. Stillness is not just the absence of movement or sound. It is the deliberate choice to remain centered in the face of chaos, to hold your ground when your emotions pull you in all directions. It is within this space of stillness that resilience is born. Not from running or reacting, but from enduring and observing. When you stop speaking about your problems to others and turn inward, you begin to notice the patterns within yourself. You start to see how your thoughts trigger reactions, how your fears distort reality, and how your mind creates suffering through resistance. Stillness brings clarity. It invites you to see without judgment and to remain present with discomfort without needing to fix it immediately. That ability to stay when every instinct tells you to flee is the foundation of resilience. Resilience is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't require validation. It is a quiet force that develops as you learn to sit with uncertainty, loss, and challenge without crumbling. Stillness teaches you how to breathe through pain, how to calm your thoughts, and how to anchor yourself when life becomes unstable. In that anchoring, you build inner strength, not through force, but through presence. Most people confuse movement with progress. They believe they must act, speak, or solve in order to overcome. But real growth often happens in the pauses, in the moments of still reflection, where you are not doing anything but being completely with yourself. It is in these moments that you learn what you are truly capable of. Stillness becomes your training ground, your mirror, your test of endurance. The resilience cultivated in stillness doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't break when things don't go your way. It adapts, it absorbs, and it recovers. Because it has been shaped by deep, quiet understanding rather than shallow reaction. The still mind is not a weak mind. It is one that has learned to listen before speaking, to pause before reacting, and to stand firm without needing to shout. This kind of resilience doesn't need to be seen or acknowledged. It speaks for itself through how you carry yourself. Calm. People can hear you, but only you can heal you. You can speak about your pain, your confusion, your struggles to others, and they might listen with sympathy, offer advice, or show understanding, but no matter how deeply someone cares, they cannot enter the inner space where your healing must begin. That space belongs to you alone. The words of others might bring comfort, but comfort is not healing. Healing is a process that happens within, not through the validation of others, but through your own acceptance, awareness, and willingness to grow. You can talk for hours, pour your heart out, and still find yourself facing the same wound, the same emotional weight, the same unresolved pain. That's because words alone do not dissolve what you carry. At best, they offer a temporary release. But when the conversation ends and the silence returns, you're still left with yourself, and it's in that silence that healing either begins or stalls. No one else can truly feel your exact experience, no matter how well they listen or how much they relate. Their presence can support, but it cannot replace the inner work required to understand and transform your suffering. Healing is deeply personal. It demands that you face uncomfortable truths, question long-held beliefs, and confront parts of yourself that you've avoided. It asks for your courage to stay with the pain without numbing it, your honesty to admit what you've been denying, and your patience to keep showing up for yourself. Other people can walk beside you, but they cannot walk through your pain for you. That path is yours alone. There's a common misconception that being hurt is enough to bring healing. While being hurt can ease emotional tension, it does not resolve the root of suffering. Healing goes deeper than expression. It involves reflection, transformation, and responsibility. It's not about what others say in response to your pain. It's about what you learn from it and how you choose to move forward. You begin to heal when you stop outsourcing your emotional well-being and start owning it. And you realize that peace doesn't come from others understanding you, but from you understanding yourself. In the end, you are your own healer. The tools may come from different sources, books, mentors, experiences, but the application of those tools is entirely in your hands. No one can go inward for you. No one can untangle your thoughts or rewire your habits, but you. And once you understand this, you stop depending on others to fix what they were never meant to. You stop hoping someone will save you and instead start showing up as the person who can. Healing is not about how many people hear you, it's about how deeply you're willing to hear yourself. The power of observation over reaction lies in the ability to create space between stimulus and response. Most people live in a constant state of reactivity, allowing their emotions to dictate their actions without ever pausing to understand what they are feeling or why. In that reactive mode, thoughts are impulsive, words are unfiltered, and decisions are often regrettable. But when you cultivate the discipline to observe instead of react, everything begins to shift. You start to see events not as personal attacks, but as information, moments to be understood rather than judged. Observation is awareness in motion. It's choosing to pause, to take a breath, to look at what is happening both around you and within you without immediately trying to control or escape it. This act of watching, without jumping to conclusions or letting emotion take the wheel, gives you power. It gives you control over your state of mind, over your choices, and ultimately over the direction of your life. Reactions are automatic. Observation is intentional. When you observe instead of react, you start to recognize patterns in your behavior. You notice the triggers that consistently provoke certain emotions, the stories you tell yourself about what things mean and the ways in which you contribute to your own suffering. This clarity allows you to respond wisely rather than emotionally. You no longer become a slave to every annoyance, every disagreement, or every uncomfortable feeling. Instead, you become a student of yourself. This shift from reaction to observation doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become selective with your energy. You learn that not every situation requires a comment. Not every insult requires defense. And not every discomfort needs to be resolved immediately. You begin to value inner peace more than the need to prove yourself right or be seen as strong. This restraint is not weakness. It is mastery. Observation teaches patience. It allows time for your emotions to settle so your mind can see clearly. It gives you the ability to respond in ways that align with who you are, not just how you feel in the moment. And over time, it builds emotional strength because you're no longer tossed around by every external wave. You learn to be still, to remain composed, and to understand before you act. The ability to observe rather than react is the beginning of freedom. It is the moment when you stop being controlled by the outside world and start living from the inside out. In this space, you make better decisions, you speak with more purpose, and you live with greater awareness. That is where true power lies, not in how forcefully you react, but in how consciously you choose. Not every storm needs to be announced. There is a quiet strength in facing challenges without making them the center of attention. In a world where people are quick to share every frustration, setback, or emotional upheaval, restraint becomes a rare and powerful quality. The storm you carry inside doesn't need to be broadcasted to earn meaning. It already has meaning because it is shaping you, refining you, and teaching you in ways that no one else needs to understand. There is dignity in endurance. Weathering something silently does not mean you are suppressing it. It means you are processing it in a deeper way. Often, the loudest cries for attention dilute the significance of the struggle itself. When everything is shared, it becomes difficult to separate what is genuine from what is performative. Some storms are meant to be walked through alone, not because others can't care, but because solitude allows the experience to settle into wisdom rather than scatter into noise. Not every moment of difficulty requires an explanation or an audience. Constantly announcing your storms invites the world into your vulnerability, but not everyone will honor it. Some will judge, some will dismiss, and others will simply misunderstand. And when that happens, you may find yourself doubting the very real weight of what you're going through. But when you hold your storm close, you create space for it to teach you without outside interference. There's also power in mystery. When people can't read your struggle, they can't define your limits. Moving quietly through hardship doesn't mean the hardship is small. It means you've chosen to face it with discipline and self-respect. You are not giving your challenges away to others in the form of complaints, of constant updates. Instead, you are keeping them within the sacred space of your own growth. That space is where change truly happens. Storms pass. They always do. But the version of you that emerges from them is shaped by how you chose to endure them. When you make your pain loud, you may find comfort in attention. But when you endure it quietly, you find strength in yourself. You build trust in your own resilience and sharpen the kind of confidence that doesn't need validation. You learn that your survival doesn't need an audience. It only needs your full presence. Your energy is sacred. Protect it. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you feed, every conversation you engage in, either contributes to your inner peace or takes away from it. Most people give away their energy too freely, speaking about their problems to anyone who will listen, repeating painful stories, relieving negative emotions, and expecting others to carry a weight that ultimately belongs to them. But your energy is not meant to be scattered like that. It is a limited, powerful resource that must be preserved with care and intention. When you constantly share your struggles with others, you reopen emotional wounds and give those moments new life. What could have passed quietly becomes reinforced through repetition. The more you talk about your pain, the more space it occupies in your mind and body. This isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about honoring yourself enough to know when speaking becomes self-sabotage. Every time you pour your story into someone who cannot truly help, you're spending energy that could have been used for healing, growth, or reflection. Protecting your energy means becoming mindful of who you allow into your emotional space. Not everyone is meant to hold your truth, and not every environment is safe for vulnerability. Some people feed off drama, some listen without understanding, and others may quietly judge. Your problems are not for public consumption. They are sacred parts of your journey and should be shared only when doing so supports healing, not when it drains you further. There is strength in being selective. It doesn't mean you're cold or distant. It means you recognize the value of your inner world. You begin to ask yourself before speaking, will this help me understand more? Will this empower me? Or is it just a habit of release? You learn to hold your energy like something precious, choosing to invest it. Energy protection also means monitoring what you consume, what you read, who you follow, what conversations you entertain. All of it shapes your mental landscape. If you surround yourself with negativity, even subtly, you absorb it. If you spend time in spaces that validate your pain instead of your potential, you begin to identify more with suffering than with strength. Guarding your energy is a form of respect. Respect for your time, your growth, and your peace. Your well-being is your responsibility. The way you manage your energy determines the quality of your life. When you protect it fiercely, you begin to notice which habits, people, and patterns elevate you and which ones quietly exhaust you. And in that awareness, you gain the power to choose. You no longer feel the need to explain your pain to be seen. You start to value your calm more than your need to be understood. That is when your energy stops leaking and begins to heal. Face inward before reaching outward. In moments of confusion, stress, or emotional turmoil, the natural impulse is to seek something outside. Advice, comfort, distraction, validation. But turning outward before turning inward often leads to more noise than clarity. You begin to collect opinions, compare experiences, and rely on external reassurance while neglecting the one place where all your answers truly reside, within yourself. The inner world is the foundation of every thought you think, every emotion you feel, and every decision you make. Ignoring it in favor of the outer world only delays the process of real understanding. When you face inward, you begin to observe your thoughts without immediately reacting to them. You start to notice the deeper causes of your discomfort, the fears hiding beneath your anger, the insecurities behind your overthinking, the stories you keep repeating to yourself without question. These insights don't come when you're distracted by others' voices. They come in silence, in stillness, in honest reflection. Looking inward is not about overanalyzing or becoming self-absorbed. It's about taking responsibility for your inner state before projecting it outward. So much unnecessary conflict, both internal and external, arises when people act from a place of emotional chaos rather than self-awareness. When you speak or act without facing yourself first, you risk saying what you don't mean, doing what doesn't align with your values, or depending on others to solve what you haven't tried to understand. But when you ground yourself in your own presence, you gain clarity. You learn to respond instead of react. You begin to approach challenges not as problems to be fixed by others, but as invitations to grow and adjust from within. Facing inward also builds emotional maturity. It teaches you that no one else is responsible for your peace and no one else can fully make sense of your experience. The more you rely on external sources for comfort or direction, the more power you give away. But when you turn inward first, when you sit with your feelings, reflect on your thoughts and allow yourself to process, you strengthen your ability to guide your own path. This internal guidance becomes your anchor, keeping you stable even when the external world feels uncertain. Only after facing inward can you reach outward with clarity, purpose, and intention. Only then can you speak from truth rather than confusion, offer presence rather than projection, and ask for help, not out of desperation, but out of understanding. The inward journey is not easy. It requires honesty, patience, and the willingness to feel uncomfortable. But it is the most necessary step toward peace. Before you look to others to hear you, see you, or help you, look to yourself. That is where alignment begins. So in a world that constantly urges you to speak, to share, to explain every struggle, you must remember the quiet power of restraint. Not every problem needs an audience. Not every pain needs a voice. And not every storm needs to be seen to be survived. True strength is not proven in how loudly you suffer, but in how deeply you grow in silence. When you stop outsourcing your healing and start facing yourself, you begin to master your own mind, your own emotions, and your own life. Protect your energy. Observe before you react. Heal before you speak, because the path to peace, clarity, and resilience begins not in the noise of the world, but in the stillness within.